I'd like to thank you so much for joining us for this webinar on the subject of using MongoDB with Sisense. We're very lucky to have Alex Popov of Simba Technologies here with us alongside Evan Castle, our product manager. Simba Technologies is one of the leading suppliers in standard-based data access and data analytics connectivity solutions for both relational and multi-dimensional data sources. Alex is going to be talking about Simba's connection to MongoDB and presenting some use cases on their side. And then Evan will dive deep into using MongoDB with Sisense, the benefits, the challenges, everything in between. And then he's going to finish off with a MongoDB demo. So Alex, why don't you get started?
Hi everyone, thanks Daphne. So yeah, my name is Alex Popov and I'm a marketing manager at Simba Technologies. I'm just going to say a few words about who we are and what we do, and if you'll have any questions, please use the questions window and I will also answer them after the demo. So Simba Technologies develops and licenses data connectivity software. Our software enables connection between the data sources such as MongoDB or Couchbase, Cassandra, and many others on one end, and any ODBC or JDBC compliant data consumer applications such as Sisense BI on the other end. So why is it important? So today, enterprise data is rapidly becoming more heterogeneous. Gone are the days when all the data would neatly fit into rows and columns of a SQL server or an Oracle database, and today's data takes many forms and comes from many different sources. And the problem is that typical data consumer application still expects the data to be structured in a tabular form. A BI application either needs to create an interface to every possible data source on the market, or it can comply with a standard-based data access specification, such as ODBC or JDBC, and connect through the ODBC JDBC driver. And that's what we do. So we've been specializing in ODBC connectivity since 1992. In fact, we co-created the original ODBC specification with Microsoft and shipped the first ODBC driver for Windows. Then over the next two decades, Simba became an expert in standard-based connectivity for relational and multidimensional data. Then in 2012, Simba created the first commercial ODBC driver for Hadoop platform, which allowed analysts to use familiar SQL-based BI tools while working with non-relational data sources. And since then, Simba ODBC and JDBC connectivity has become a de facto industry standard for the big data and NoSQL markets. So our software is licensed and shipped as the official drivers by virtually all Hadoop distributions and leading NoSQL vendors. So why do these companies choose Simba? Simba drivers enable SQL support for the data sources that don't natively support SQL, such as Mongo, or implement only a subset of ANSI SQL 92 standard. We do this through our modular SQL engine that abstracts the differences in query language implementations and presents a uniform, standard-compliant interface to query data using familiar SQL language. Our drivers are also fully compliant with the latest versions of both ODBC and JDBC standards. Our SQL engine optimizes query execution by determining which parts of the query plan could be pushed down for execution on the data source and which needs to be performed by the driver. This feature is called collaborative query execution. It dramatically reduces the query execution time and resource requirements on the client side. We also offer advanced client-server deployment options with high-performance wire protocol. Client-server setup improves driver performance by the order of magnitude by reducing the volume of data sent over the network and keeping query execution close to the data source. NoSQL data sources usually don't have a predefined schema. It presents a challenge because ODBC-compliant BI tools expect to have access to schema information to automate ad hoc query generation. And Simba drivers solve this problem by performing automatic schema discovery and renormalization of hierarchical and composite data types typical for NoSQL data sources. Embedded documents are flattened into additional columns, and the arrays are presented as virtual tables with a foreign key relationship. We also provide a schema editor tool which allows further customization and management of already discovered schema. We build our products for ISVs, the independent software vendors like Sisense, and when you need support, you get direct access to the engineers who build the product. We stand by our products and we want you to succeed in getting your job done. And finally, we offer the most comprehensive platform support in the industry. Our drivers run on Windows, Mac, Linuxes, different Unixes, and even on iOS. So here's just a few of the companies who license and ship Simba drivers as part of their products. And if your company develops a data source or a BI tool, we want to help you make sure that your product can seamlessly interoperate with other systems. And here's a small sample of companies who actually use our MongoDB driver in production that we'll be demoing today. So what do our customers say about our drivers? Well, the most common feedback, it just works. Yes, building the ODBC driver is a very inglorious business. It's like asking for feedback on plumbing. You open a tap and expect the hot water, and you don't really think about how it gets there. And similarly, business users, they care just that they have access to their data in the BI tool of their choice, and all the query language conversions and optimizations and authentication, web protocol compression and data type conversions and on-the-fly schema discovery and renormalization. It's all hidden from the end users. They just know that they need to connect to their data source. It's going to be there. So there's a few other points that we hear quite often. People like that automatic schema generation. You basically don't need to do any configuration or schema setup before you start working with your data. The driver does its best to discover the schema for you. And if you need to customize the schema for different reasons, you can also do it with a bundled schema editor. And you can make it available for all users by saving it on the data source itself, or you can do a per user configuration file, configuration schema. We hear a lot that people are happy that they don't need to learn another query language or API to access their data. It's standard SQL 92 works, or if they don't use SQL, just through the BI of their choice, like Sisense, they can use the graphical user interface to work with their data. And we're also hearing about a great compatibility, and we actually pride ourselves that our drivers are fully certified with the leading BI tools, and we do a lot of testing, and literally millions of tests to make sure that our drivers will work with how BI tools generate their queries. So here's some feedback again. If you're building a data source or a data consumer application, at some point you will need a standard-based connectivity to or from your product, so please get in touch with us and we'll help you make it happen. So here's a few more drivers that we offer, where it's not just a MongoDB. So you can go to our website and see what else we have to offer, and we also offer driver development tools. And with that, I'll pass it back to Daphne.
Thank you so much, Alex, for that quick overview of Simba technologies. Now, Evan will continue and explain how Sisense and Simba work together to make the connectivity of MongoDB seamless within Sisense. So, Evan, why don't you take it away?
Hi everybody, this is Evan. I'm a product manager here at Sisense, and I'll be walking you through some details on our integration with MongoDB, specifically from an analytics and business intelligence perspective. So we'll just get started with the presentation. What we're going to be discussing is four main issues. One is the analytical challenges that a number of our customers talk about when dealing with MongoDB. Then we're going to specifically dive in and talk about how we can actually leverage the operational benefits from MongoDB and translate that into an effective environment to actually get analytics, business insights, and embedded analytics using Sisense. Then we're going to go over a quick customer case study for Sisense and how it was utilized, and then we're going to actually do a live demo with some of the things that Sisense is experimenting with MongoDB itself. So typically, when we discuss kind of, what challenges people face when trying to get robust analysis from MongoDB, the one thing that comes up, which is actually the benefit of MongoDB, is dealing with the unstructured schemas. So the renormalization process, which Alex mentioned, is very important, being able to structure data into something that can be consistent and measurable and leveraged for analytics and for comparison and for insights. The second thing that comes up is often that businesses are operating with multiple systems and data sources, and they need an environment to be easily mash it up and see a complete picture of their business. In addition, Mongo is a technically developer-friendly environment, but on the side of business analysts, it becomes more complex to leverage information from it, and there's a need to kind of simplify those steps required to get insight from Mongo. And of course, lastly, there's the need to be able to scale for analytics purposes, so being able to deal with complex data, being able to automate the process of analytics within the organization and scale it out to hundreds or thousands of users. So if we just try and take a step back and actually look in terms of the view of MongoDB in terms of its benefits and Sisense in terms of its benefits, we can actually see there's a really good match. So first off, there is the fact that Mongo offers a dynamic schema is great for things like content management, personalization, applications, any environment that really demands flexibility in terms of the information it's captured. But as we said, there's a need to kind of reformat the information, and with our partnership of we're going to be able to renormalize that data in an automated and intelligent fashion. The other component is that Mongo is great in terms of developers being able to integrate and build applications on top of it, but Sisense was really a good environment for analysts as well, trying to access complex data sets. So being able to translate, being able to support both sides of the business, both the technical and the professional component. The third aspect of MongoDB that often is very beneficial is being able to capture many attributes and not having to define the schema up front. So for any kind of entity within a document or collection, there's a vast number of attributes that can be useful, and Sisense itself is actually a columnar in-memory solution. So being columnar, that means that we deal very well with multiple columns or fields of data, and we support that environment out the box. The last component is really around horizontal scaling, which is very strong in Mongo. It can generate large data sets, and that's another benefit of Sisense, being able to support large and complex data sets for an analytical purposes. So again, to look at a few more of the other kind of talking points of how people are using Sisense integration, it's the ability to really run SQL on a NoSQL environment such as Mongo, being able to business users to create their own transformations or run out the need for developers to build dashboards with an easy tool to visualize the data, which is web-based, which doesn't require much learning or technical skills to kind of manipulate the data in a way that's useful to them. Other point that we mentioned is the ability to kind of get fast access. So as Sisense is a columnar data store, we have our own proprietary in-chip technology, which makes it very quick to process the information. So through a single large complex model, you can create different views, different analytics out of the data and process those queries, even if it's in a large data set, very quickly. There's also various other support that with new integrations that we're offering through the MongoDB for SSL and leveraging other performance advantages that MongoDB is providing, whether it's the aggregation framework, buffering, batching, all those tools to make it quick to actually export that data, and of course the automatic renormalization and dealing with kind of complex schemas that are produced within MongoDB. From a business perspective, this really leads to two valuable outcomes. The first is really getting a 360-degree view of all your business activities and operations by combining multiple sources of data with MongoDB, being able to centralize it into a single view, a central location of all the data, and being able to support large data models, complex data models. For analysts, there's the ability to kind of automate the flow of data from MongoDB so it's ready for analysis, and that can be managed from developers but also from a business perspective. The ability to offer high performance even on complex data sets, and a very rich visual front end which makes it possible to create their own visualizations, custom formulas, to drill across or into very large data sets in a quick way, an intuitive way to share and collaborate in that data. So one example that we have is a customer of ours, Cast, which is works with an expert in the field of customer experience dealing with retailers. What they have is tens of thousands of representatives who will go study the conditions in store across locations in the United States, and they use MongoDB to kind of capture that information because it tends to be very varied, and they need the flexibility in order to capture and scale those scenarios. When it comes time to actually generate insight, it could be a very manual process of trying to export their data into whether it's CSV or Excel files, and then give it to analysts to manipulate. And Sisense is offering them a way to reduce the time to insight by automating the workflow to get MongoDB into reports that can be then shared with their own clients, and to scale the service across new business that they're generating, and also to provide the focus of control not only for developers or IT, but also for professionals themselves who can come in and create new reports or find their own insights and generate that into business value or further programs within the organization. So we're now going to do a quick demo before we actually look into questions. Some of the things that we're going to touch on is the ability to do auto detection of schemas through MongoDB, the use of virtual tables to dealing with arrays, Sisense columnar solution, and how that looks like in terms of being able to mash up data, and of course create interactive dashboards itself. So what we'll do is just jump across to, bear with me one moment folks. The first thing that we're going to look at is just an example of Sisense, and I'm just going to explain to you a little bit about what that is. So we're trying to use MongoDB to actually capture, or to experiment to capture usage data of a dashboard at Sisense itself. So there are various factors that go into an individual dashboard. It might be the set of visualizations, it might be the filters that were applied or who it was actually shared with. So that information itself tends to be quite varied and rich, and Mongo offers a solution to capture that kind of information itself in a very kind of robust and flexible manner itself. So if we had to start off just to show you maybe the actual Mongo database that we're connecting to. So we can see over here there's an instance of Mongo that we're running. If I just expand that, we'll see there's a set of collections in our dashboard collection over here. We actually view it. Just to give you an example, we can see we're capturing various information such as the data source, information about the layout, the filters, tags, and various items. Now to access this underlying schema itself and to kind of structure it in a way that's easy for anybody to use, we partnered with Simba, the ability to be able to configure an ODBC connection gives us a number of benefits. So if we just look at the connection to this underlying database, we'll see a few things. So first of all, besides the basic connection details, we can connect to replica sets, but more importantly, there's the ability to work with schema definitions. Okay, now we got it. So what I wanted to show you was the settings around the schema definitions itself. So you can actually automatically generate the schema itself, or actually upload your own data itself. If we're trying to connect to that dashboard file itself, if we just look at the schema settings, what we'll see is a number of the use of intelligent use of virtual tables to being able to structure that data. So if we look at dashboards, we get main information around that dashboard. There's various virtual tables capturing information that we can use as well. So you can either use this automated capability, or yourself you can actually load a file to determine the schema itself. There's various options for working with these virtual tables as well that make it very easy. Now, once you've actually initiated this connection to MongoDB, any end user can come in a very visual environment, actually connect to that data. So this is an example of a model that we've built using MongoDB and Sisense, along with various other data sources. Now, to connect to an underlying data source, in this case, because it's an ODBC driver, we can simply select that as an option, connect to the usage, and then once we're connected, what we'll see is a list of all those various entities that we can use as well. So we can simply select and add that to our schema, and it will create an entity which can then be modeled. Now, if I wanted to actually join data sources, whether with MongoDB or another source, it's a very simple process of just dragging and dropping to create the field connection. So this actually creates joins in a multi-dimensional environment to build these robust models with various entities. So you can have a lot of different data sources, a lot of columns, a lot of fields joined in place. You can also obviously match that up with other sources. So in this case, if we just want to connect to Excel or to other applications, in this case we can add another entity over here. And again, if we want to just continue to build out the schema, we can easily just drag and drop to mash up data. So the ability to kind of join multiple data sources together to do manipulations to the data. So if I wanted to create a new column, I can easily do that and access a set of Excel-like functions to actually manipulate the data itself. Once this is in place, there's the dashboarding environment, which is web-based and provides an easy way to actually start interacting and working with the data itself. So we just jump to that. We can see now this is browser-based. I can create various visualizations leveraging the data in MongoDB. So this is my schema over here. If I want to take a look at various factors, I can easily just perform calculations, whether it's to see the number of shares or whatever it is on a dashboard, and add it to my environment over here in a very visual and interactive way. It's also easy to explore that data, so if I want to drill into it, I can actually go into any data source and drill into it, create filters, create my own custom measures, and of course being able to share that data out. It's also possible to embed using iframes or JavaScript, Sisense and other applications. So if you want to use data from MongoDB in an embedded environment, that's also supported as well. But what I'd like to do now is just kind of open up to questions. Anything related to the ODBC drive, I'm sure Alex will be able to answer. Anything related to Sisense will do, but what we'll do is just kind of give you folks a few minutes to pop in your questions in the question box, and we'll be happy to answer them as they come in.
Okay, so we have one question regarding volumes of data for you, Evan. What kind of volumes of data can Sisense handle with MongoDB?
Okay, it's a great question. Typically, there's a range of data volume that we can deal with. It's not only about the data size, which typically get asked, and I would say you get the team deal very well with terabytes of data. Typically, the use cases are for tables with hundreds of millions or tens of millions of rows as well that we can scale out for. I think the big advantage of Sisense, though, is being able to manage a single schema with many sources, many joins, many manipulations as well. So being able to provide that is actually a very scalable infrastructure to our customers.
Okay, so we have another question coming in regarding embedded analytics. That's also for you, Evan. How does that work with embedded analytics? Basically, the question is, if you would like to use Sisense for embedded analytics, can you use MongoDB for that as well?
Great question. So yes, a large portion of our business is for embedded analytics. As I said, which is similar to the client example that we gave, although it wasn't embedded analytics. One of the things that is enabled through this environment is being able to give end users the ability to either consume dashboards and embed them in your own application in a web environment, but also being able to enable end users to create their own analytics. So a very powerful feature is to being able to create their own visualizations, their own custom formulas, their own dashboards, leveraging Sisense on top of MongoDB data itself, and still providing an environment that's kind of controlled and well governed for end users, whether it's through various security features like row-level security or governance features on the Elastic Queue controlling accessibility and links to the data over there.
Okay, so we're going to take one last question over here, and this one's for you, Alex, regarding performance features. What are the latest performance features that have come up for MongoDB, and is Simba utilizing that in any way?
So great question. We closely track the releases of MongoDB, and I can't speak about specific features, but I mentioned the collaborative query execution, and that's how we take advantage of those improvements. So basically, the SQL engine plans the query in such a way that all the functionality that could be pushed down to the data source, to MongoDB, will be pushed down. Again, I cannot comment on the exact, which features currently are supported, but if you open the user guide for the driver, it lists, or in the latest release notes, it will list the particular features that are currently supported.
Great. Alex and Evan, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about MongoDB. As usual, we have been recording the session, and we're going to send that over in a couple of hours. And we have the presentations, Alex's presentation and Evan's presentation. We're going to send that over to you guys as well. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us, and Evan and Alex will be happy to answer. And stay tuned for next week. Next week, we've got a really, really great webinar on the subject of R and Sisense. So that's a really cool webinar that's really recommended for you guys. So hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks. And